Trump valet and aide Walt Nauta will be arraigned at a federal court in Miami today for his role in the former president's alleged mishandling of classified documents after he left the White House. Scott MacFarlane is joining us now from Miami with all the details. Really good to see you. So Nauta, the aide who stayed, as I understand, is his nickname. Remind us of, how he's connected to Donald Trump and how he might plead today.
Walt Nauta is expected to plead not guilty when he arrives for this arraignment here at federal court in Miami. He has been right at President Trump's side when he was president, at his side as a former president at Mar-a-Lago, and still at his side during recent campaign events. He is a surrogate. He is a close associate of Donald Trump's. And in this unique context, Anne-Marie, he is the co-defendant, accused of being part of this conspiracy with the former president to conceal records from federal investigators and to obstruct justice, and in Walt Nauta's case, to issue false statements to keep the feds off their tracks, off their path. Walt Nauta, again, appears here in court today. It should be a brief hearing, but here's what we're watching for. What other sense of the case do we get during the proceedings here in Miami? Do we get a better sense of timing? We know the judge has scheduled the first pretrial conference for July 14th. She scheduled trial for August 14th. We know the prosecutors are seeking to delay that, Anne-Marie, till December to give defense attorneys time to get the requisite security clearances. But perhaps today, the magistrate judge here, gives us a better sense of what's next and what's reasonable in terms of this timetable for the potential trial of the century.
So, Scott, for some reason, I thought that Nauta was at the courthouse when Trump was there initially, too, because the two cases are connected, right? They're co-defendants.
They are co-defendants, and they sit at the same defense table. The only thing between them are a pair of lawyers. But in the case of June 13th, when Donald Trump was arraigned, and he famously walked into the courthouse behind me, Walt Nauta came too, but he didn't come with a local attorney, a Florida-based or Florida-barred attorney, so they couldn't do the arraignment on site. He has since picked up new local Florida counsel, which allows the arraignment to move forward today. Could be a brief hearing. What we're watching for, though, is what happens after Nauta enters the plea. What does the judge ask? What cards do the prosecutors or defense attorneys show? And what does it tell us about the trajectory of the first ever federal prosecution of a former U.S. president?
So I guess it's not surprising that they would be co-defendants. I'm pretty sure neither wants the other to be working against each other, if that's making any sense. Do we have a sense of just, if he is found guilty, what sort of time he would be facing, and whether or not his case could have an impact on Donald Trump's case if they're co-defendants?
Yeah, really, anytime you have a co-defendant, you have two people whose cases depend on each other. There's always the possibility, just in theory, a possibility somebody pleads guilty and turns evidence to the federal government. That's always a possibility when you have more than one defendant. Let's put that aside. They both face the same charges in so many cases, nearly 36 of them. These are felonies. These are punishable by very provocatively long prison sentences in theory. We're talking about decades in prison, not days, weeks, or months. In the federal system, we issue some caution when we talk about that because there are federal sentencing guidelines in the case of a guilty plea or a conviction that make things much smaller than they appear on paper. But Walt Nauta and Donald Trump are now inextricably tied in the criminal justice system. They are co-defendants in a criminal case. Moving forward, they are figuratively, if not literally, side by side in court.
Not just in the criminal justice system, in history at this point. Scott, thank you very much.